All right, so today we're going to do something a little different, something really cool. We're going under the hood of Llama 4, one of the most advanced AIs on the planet. We're going to look at the actual code and break it all down into a story that actually makes sense, to see how an AI really thinks the moment you ask it a question.
You know how it is, right? You type a question into a chat window, hit enter, and poof! A moment later, a perfect answer appears. It feels like straight-up magic, but it's not. It's a very precise, step-by-step process running behind the scenes. So what is that process? Let's do it. Let's pull back the curtain. So think of this as a factory tour. We're going to walk through 5 key stages. We'll start with just powering the whole thing on, and we'll end with a fully formed, coherent answer. This is the exact journey your words take every single time. First things first, before the model can answer anything, well, it has to be turned on, right? This is the setup phase, and in the code, it's all handled by a function called build. You can literally think of it as turning on the lights and firing up the entire assembly line. And this whole setup process, it's a lot like building a real factory. The build function first kind of preps the workspace. Then it pulls up the architectural blueprints from a file called params.json. Using those plans, it constructs the core machinery, the transformer model. And then, and this is the big one, it loads all of its knowledge, everything it's ever learned, from these files called the state dict. And just like that, the factory's open for business. Okay, so the factory's up and running, but what about the raw materials? That's your prompt. See, here's the thing. The model doesn't understand English at all. It only understands numbers. So this whole stage is about getting your words ready for that digital assembly line. And this is what that translation actually looks like. The code uses something called a tokenizer, which basically chops up your sentence into a sequence of numbers, or tokens. Each number is a code for a word, or even just a piece of a word. That string of numbers, that's it. That's all the model ever really sees. Our language becomes its language. All right, now we're at the heart of the whole operation, the generate function. This is the assembly line. And it has this secret that's kind of wild when you think about it. It doesn't build the response all at once. It builds it one single word at a time. So this whole process has a fancy name, autoregressive generation. Sounds super technical, I know, but the basic idea is actually pretty simple. All it means is that to figure out the very next word, the model has to look at all the words that came right before it. Let's just walk through how the loop works. Okay, step 1. Our prompt, those numbers we just saw for what is artificial intelligence, they get fed right into that giant transformer model that we built a minute ago. That's our starting point. Now, the model chews on those numbers, but what comes out the other side isn't a word, not even close. Instead, it spits out this huge list of scores, they're called logits, for every single possible word in its vocabulary, and there are tens of thousands of them. These scores are basically the model's best guess for what the very next word should be. Okay, so now a choice has to be made. This little component, the sampler, it looks at all those probabilities, all those scores, and it has to pick one winner. Let's say, just for this example, it picks token number 297, which might stand for the word artificial. And this is where that auto-regressive thing clicks. That new number I just picked, 297, gets slapped onto the end of our original prompt. So now, this brand new, slightly longer sequence gets fed right back into the model to predict the next word. And the whole thing just repeats, over and over, adding one word at a time until the entire answer is built. So that's the big question, right? How does that sampler actually pick a word from thousands of options? It's not as simple as just grabbing the top score every time. The Llama code gives us these 2 little dials we can turn, temperature and top P, that let us control the AI's balance between being creative and just being predictable. Temperature is basically the creativity dial. If you set it to 0, the model gets super boring. It's greedy. It just picks the number 1 option, the highest probability word every single time. But as you crank that dial up, it starts to take more risks, sampling from a wider pool of good options. That's what makes the answers feel more varied and, human. Then you've got the other dial, top P. This one works a little differently. If you set top P to 0.9, like we see here, the model makes a short list. It starts lining up the most likely words, like is, and it adds up their probabilities one by one until it hits that 90% target. And then, boom, it throws everything else in the trash and only chooses from that pre-approved list. It's a really smart way to stop the AI from saying something totally weird while still giving it some creative freedom. And hey, don't just take my word for it. This is pulled straight from the comments the developers wrote in the actual Llama 4 code. This quote describes that top P logic perfectly. It tells you exactly how the engineers designed this thing to think. Okay, so let's zoom out and put all these pieces together. We've seen the individual parts, the functions in the code, but how do all these little functions create that smooth conversational thing we actually talk to?
So that's the whole journey, right there, in 5 steps. The model gets built, your prompt gets turned into numbers, that autoregressive loop generates new numbers one by one, with temperature and top P steering the choices, and then finally, that finished list of numbers gets sent back to the tokenizer to be translated back into the words you see on your screen.
So you see, it's not magic, it's an engine. A meticulously designed assembly line of logic, moving from a function call to a full conversation. So yeah, the next time you chat with an AI, just take a second and picture that journey your words are taking, from text to tokens, through that prediction loop and back to text again, because now you know exactly what's going on under the hood.